Okay, today we're tackling, well, probably one of the most essential, but also maybe most uncomfortable deep dives you can do in film history. We're looking at a movie that's simultaneously foundational for how movies are made, and also just a monumentally destructive piece of racist propaganda.
Neat.
D.W. Griffith's 1915 epic, The Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, it's a tough one. A real paradox.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for like the absolute shortcut to understanding how film became an art form, you kind of have to confront this movie. Our source material, the book Cinema, the Magic Vehicle, it guides us through these key films, but also through time, you know?
Right.
It really stresses how films aren't made in a vacuum. They reflect, and sometimes they violently shape the political and social stuff happening around them.
That's exactly it. And our mission today really is to grapple with this huge paradox. How can one film be so incredibly innovative? I mean, literally inventing the language of cinema. And yet have a message so poisonous, so toxic, that it actually sparked race riots and helped revive a terrorist group. We have to understand its power and how that genius got weaponized.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with just the sheer scale of it. When The Birth of a Nation came out, there was nothing like it. Nothing.
No, absolutely.
It was so big, so overwhelming, it got attention right from the top. It's where that famous quote comes from, attributed to President Woodrow Wilson. We might have borrowed it.
Oh, yeah, the History with Lightning one.
That's the one. He supposedly saw it at the White House and said, "It is like writing history with lightning." And my only regret is that it is all so terribly true.
And even if he did borrow that line, maybe from Coleridge the poet, it captures how people felt then. It was electric, overwhelming. Audiences didn't just feel like they were watching a movie. They thought they were seeing history itself. Undeniable truth unfolding. And the impact was just so profound, it dominated the whole genre. Our sources point out this one single massive Civil War epic basically stopped anyone else from trying something similar for almost 100 years.
100 years, really?
Pretty much. You don't really see that kind of scale, that attempt at a comprehensive historical sweep again until, what, Gettysburg in 93?
Right, or Gods and Generals later.
Exactly. Griffith hit the peak right away. He defined what a historical epic could be technically and set this bar that just seemed too high for decades.
Okay, let's dive into the narrative itself then.
Yeah.
Because the story, that's the vehicle for Griffith's let's just say it, vile message. It's this huge two-family epic, right, spanning 24 parts. You've got the Stonemans from Pennsylvania, the Camerons from South Carolina, before the war, during, after, Reconstruction.
Yeah, the whole sweep.
And you get that classic setup, the romances crossing the North-South divide. Phil Stoneman and Margaret Cameron, Ben Cameron and Elsie Stoneman.
And the first half, you know, it works as this powerful, really tragic war film. You see the devastation. The youngest Stoneman son dies. 2 Cameron sons die.
Okay.
Ben Cameron, he's the Southern hero figure, gets badly wounded, captured, sentenced to death even. He's only saved because Elsie Stoneman, the Northern girl, is working as a nurse and intervenes.
So Griffith really builds sympathy for these characters first.
He does. He spends a lot of energy painting them as, you know, victims of the war itself, not really as political players at that point.
Okay, but here's where it takes that incredibly dark turn. After the war, the film shifts entirely to Reconstruction, and Griffith paints it as just chaotic, terrifying, an attack on the Southern way of life.
And the sources are very clear. This portrayal is incredibly inflammatory, utterly biased.
So the story brings in Austin Stoneman, this powerful Northern congressman. He goes south specifically to, like, revolutionize politics there.
Right, and he brings his protege, Silas Lynch, who's presented as mixed race. Stoneman wants to install Lynch in power, claiming he's empowering Black Southerners, but, you know, the film frames it as being done through fraud and manipulation.
Okay, so this is where it stops being a war story and becomes just blatant propaganda.
Absolutely. Designed to incite anger. Griffith's version of the South is one where the white population is just impotent, is the word used.
Wow.
And the response, the war hero, Ben Cameron, he forms the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, to fight back against this perceived chaos.
And the climax of this whole narrative arc is just horrific.
It really is. Gus, who's a former slave, chases Flora Cameron. The implication is sexual assault.
Right.
And Flora, terrified, leaps off a cliff to her death rather than face, you know, the implied rape.
And that becomes the justification.
That's the direct justification for the KKK's violence. Ben Cameron's brand new Klan hunts Gus down, lynches him, and leaves his body on Silas Lynch's doorstep as a warning.
Unbelievable.
And the film ends with the KKK portrayed as heroes, literally heroic rescuers, riding in to save the white families from black militia, ensuring the marriages between the main families happen. Griffith frames this symbolically as the birth of the American nation.
And our source material doesn't pull any punches about the message, does it?
Not at all. It says, look, Griffith claimed he just wanted to defend the South's dignity against Yankee propaganda, but the analysis finds he let his emotions, his sort of Victorian sentimentality, just completely overwhelm any sense of fairness. The result.
Yeah.
It functions as, and this is a quote, an apology for the racist and jingoistic aspects of the South, a glorification of the Ku Klux Klan, and a libel on the American black community.
A libel. Strong word.
And it wasn't just theory. The consequences were immediate, terrifyingly real. The film became a massive recruitment tool for the KKK.
Which had been basically dead, right?
Pretty much dormant since the 1870s. And then, boom, race riots exploded in major cities, especially places where tensions were already high.
So what about the blowback? Did attempts to ban it work at all? Or was it just too popular?
Well, there was huge conflict right away, social legal battles. It was denied release in several states, some cities too, because of the violence and the controversy.
Okay.
Griffith even tried some damage control. He revised it from the original title, which was The Clansman. Took out some explicit scenes, added this plea for peace at the end.
That helped.
Not really, didn't change the core racist narrative. But despite the bans, its popularity was like a tidal wave. People were just desperate to see this huge new kind of spectacle.
It's just astonishing that we now have to completely shift gears and talk about the artistic genius that delivered this hateful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what makes the racism so terrifying, right?
Yeah.
He used such incredible skill to make the propaganda so effective. He's called the father of American cinema for a reason.
He is. And he had immense experience, directed nearly 500 short films, like little one-reelers, between 1908 and 1914 before this.
Wow, 500.
Yeah, so he honed his craft. And what's fascinating is that the technical skill is totally inseparable from the film's power. Griffith and his cameraman, Billy Bitzer, who was brilliant, they basically invented the blueprint for cinematic storytelling. The sources say Griffith essentially invented film editing. He saw that the cut, taking out time and space, putting shots together strategically, that was the difference between just filming a play and actual cinema.
And not just that he cut, but how he cut. The rhythm, the pacing, it was all intentional.
Totally. The length of each shot was designed to manipulate the audience's emotions. Fast cutting for tense scenes, like when the Camerons are trapped.
Yeah, like modern action scenes.
Exactly. Or slower shots for quieter moments. We still use this constantly. Action, horror, you name it.
But the most powerful invention, maybe, especially for the propaganda aspect,
Has to be parallel development. That classic technique. Cutting back and forth between two things happening at the same time. The hero in danger, the rescuers racing to save them.
Think about what that does structurally in this film. He keeps cutting from the terrified white families in the hut to the KKK riding in, often in slow motion, looking heroic. The editing itself equates the KKK with salvation.
Precisely. This technique, which is fundamental to thrillers, to action movies, was used here to make racial terrorism look like heroism. It's incredibly manipulative.
He also defined contrast editing, right?
Yeah.
Like cutting between a quiet home scene and the noise of battle.
Yes, maximizing the emotional shock. These principles, they built the vocabulary we still use.
And the camera work, too. That was revolutionary.
Completely. Before this, cameras were mostly just static, like watching a stage play. Griffith and Bitzer made the camera move. They used, a staggering variety of things for the time. Close-ups, pans across a scene, big panorama shots, traveling shots following action.
Okay, let's pause on the close-up. Why was that such a big deal?
Because it created intimacy. Before, you saw the whole actor, maybe waist up. With a close-up, suddenly you're forced right into their face, confronting just their emotion. It creates this immediate, powerful empathy. And when you use that kind of intimacy to sell a racist narrative of fear, well, it makes the message feel personal, undeniable to the viewer.
Wow.
This was really the first time audiences felt inside the story, not just watching from a distance.
And the logistical side of this is also kind of mind-blowing. All this innovation, inventing parallel editing, using close-up strategically, complex camera move, they did it super fast.
Yeah, the schedule was nuts. Shot in just 9 weeks.
9 weeks with basically one camera.
One camera, 2 layers, that's it.
Now, hold on. The budget was $110,000 in 1915. That's what, about $2.2 million today. which sounds like a lot for back then.
It was a huge budget for the time.
But for literally inventing modern cinema under pressure like that, did the sources say if they even knew how big this was while they were doing it?
Oh, there was a huge sense of risk. Ambition, definitely. Griffith was betting everything. Yeah. And that pressure, plus bits of genius, it just forced them to innovate. They weren't following rules. They were making the rules as they went because the story demanded it. It was chaotic, brilliant, breakneck. And it resulted in a film that wasn't just expensive. It was this unprecedented commercial smash hit.
Right. Connecting that to the bigger picture, the impact was commercial too, hugely so.
Oh, absolutely. The Birth of a Nation was the most profitable film made for over 20 years.
20 years. What finally beat it?
Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 22 years later. That gives you a sense of its incredible financial power and longevity.
So what did that success mean for movies overall?
Well, it completely destroyed the idea that cinema was just some cheap sideshow amusement, a temporary gimmick.
Right.
This film established movies definitively as a serious medium, one that could command huge national attention, make enormous amounts of money, and critically influence political thinking on a massive scale.
And what about Griffith himself? How did he react to all the controversy, the negative reception?
The sources say he was deeply disappointed. Bitter, even. He felt misunderstood. He was really anxious to show what he felt were his true aims.
Meaning?
That he wasn't just a racist propagandist, but a champion of more universal ideas.
Which is what leads him to make his next film, Intolerance.
Yeah.
This huge 4-part epic about hypocrisy and prejudice through history.
Exactly.
Which is just deeply ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The guy who invented modern cinema used it to spread vicious intolerance, then felt he was the victim of intolerance.
It's profoundly ironic, yes. The whole experience with Birth of a Nation clearly had this huge, almost paradoxical effect on his next work. He felt attacked, misunderstood, and his response was to build this colossal cinematic monument to defend himself, basically, using the very medium he'd just perfected to argue against historical prejudice.
Which brings us maybe to the final takeaway here. For you, the listener, The Birth of a Nation has to be seen as this pivotal historical anchor. It's technically brilliant, no question. The blueprint for modern film. A massive box office hit. And at the same time, undeniably a deeply flawed, racially charged artifact that caused real destructive harm in American history.
And that raises the essential question one film historians still wrestle with. When we look back at stuff like this, how do we balance artistic genius, formal brilliance, with morally bankrupt content, destructive social impact?
Yeah, can you separate them?
Do you study the technique and just reject the message? Or does the sheer effectiveness of the propaganda mean the art itself is permanently tainted? It's tough.
It's a really profound question about how we consume media even today. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Consider Griffith. He's justly slammed for the racism in Birth of a Nation. And his next move is to tackle the subject of intolerance. What does that choice tell us about the power, and maybe more importantly, the responsibility of the film medium he basically invented? It's a medium that can, like Wilson maybe said, tell history with lightning. But this film shows that sometimes that lightning just burns everything down.
A powerful and dangerous tool.
We'll leave you with that thought.